Welcome back to the ZERT Coffee and Chaos podcast, a show where we talk about anything and everything relating to what it means to be a survivalist and a prepared individual in today's society. I'm your host, Chris Bartigo, ZP002. Back with me on the show today is Jamie Franks, my co-host. Jamie, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here as always.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's been a minute. I know we've had some mix of you and Paul on the show lately, and so I forgot the last time you and I recorded, but I know that we've got a couple of things planned for some good recordings. I'm not sure if you've seen it or not, but Project Spectre has been put up and almost sold out. We got three slots left, I believe. That's a class that we're doing in November out in Oklahoma. Different range, but still the same group of warriors out there. So, pretty exciting stuff. I don't know. You've been a busy man. You've been doing you've had some flying, some training. What's going on?
Yeah, all that. In my job, which I'm an instructor, so we do 3 18-week classes a year, where if you do the math on that, that's 56 weeks of training that we accomplish in 52 weeks. So there's each class has a 2-week overlap. So every 4 months, there's a 2-week overlap where we're simultaneously teaching the old class and the new class. And I say it's like being a high school chemistry teacher today and then going to teach kindergarten, tomorrow. So we just finished that 2-week overlap. So now we just have we got the outgoing class out the door, and we got the new class started. So now we're shifting gears back to the new class, and then all the stuff with I think we talked about it last time, but from my car crash and getting a new car and all that, and so
it's crazy. This summer is blown by. Today's Thursday, so as at the time of this recording, we are recording on a Thursday, which is the day that our show drops. So if you have not listened to that show yet, I think that the show that we put out there is the last one that you and I did, which is the rifle choice versus the pistol choice, which is a good topic of conversation and kind of leads into what we're going to talk about today. With that being said, I want to thank everybody that has listened to the show, and that continues to listen to the show and continues to support us. If you're listening to it on Spotify or Apple, thank you for doing that. If you're watching it on YouTube, obviously we welcome any and all comments when we put these shows out. So thank you for being a supporter. Pause. I'm getting a low. I'm just gonna mark that time. 5:46. I'm getting a internet low bars now. It just went away. How's it look now?
Better than it did a minute ago, but
okay. I'm getting it again. What the fuck is going on here? All right. Well, we'll just go with it. How about the audio?
The audio's fine. Audio isn't uninterrupted.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go silent for 10 seconds so I can see the break in the audio, and that's where I know to cut it.
Okay. Your video just got better too.
And as you guys know, we put out shows every single Thursday on those platforms, on audio, Spotify and Apple, and then we release the video on YouTube later on. So obviously appreciate all of the support. And if you're not following the YouTube channel, please head over there and subscribe to the channel, like some of the videos, and hit the bell so you get notified when we put videos out. Not just putting out the podcast videos, we do have some product review videos out and we'll continue to put that stuff and that information on that platform for as long as we can until YouTube decides to become more Nazi-esque more than they already are.
Well, we'll see
but
about that.
yeah, I know it's horrible to see all that stuff. But going back to what I said with the reason for the linking of the topics that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and then what we're going to talk about today, is a situation that I'm not sure if a lot of people are tracking on. I will tell you that I first noticed it on TikTok, which, you know, say what you will about the app, it was running a story about something that not a lot of other social media platforms were touching. I don't really watch the news, but you know, I get it from snippets on social media, whether that's right, wrong, or just pure crazy. It is what it is. I sent you the link. I sent Paul the link. I sent a couple other people, and they had not heard of it yet. And that's the situation that's happening in Aurora, Colorado. And if you folks aren't aware of what's happening out there, you can Google it. But if anybody saw New Jack City back in the day with good old Ice-T and Judd Nelson, who else was in that? Wesley Snipes, Chris Rock, Pookie. Chris Rock was Pookie. But you know, there's a scene in that movie where a local gang takes over an apartment complex, and that's where they produce all of their drugs, and then they run their empire out of there. And what's happening in Aurora, Colorado is I'm going to butcher it, but it's the Tren de Aragua gang, or the TDA gang, as they keep referred to it in the news reports, which is a Venezuelan prison gang, has apparently taken over an apartment complex out there. And from what the reports are saying, and we're going to touch on some of the terminology used in a second, but what the reports are saying is they're doing drug trafficking, human trafficking, you know, coercion, all of that stuff. And they're basically telling the residents of the apartment complex that they now pay them rent, and they're not paying the landlord, the person who owns the building. And if they don't like it, they leave, and they just move another set of illegals in, and they just continue to multiply. So that's the report that I believe I sent to you, and that was the New York Post, and then it was also on Fox News, and now it's being covered on some other channels.
Yeah, it's like, you know, like a lot of other things today, you can almost tell more about the validity or legitimacy of a story by what the mainstream news isn't telling you.
That's very true.
Than what they are telling you. Like there's you know, just in recent years, there have been several like pretty significant news stories that just happen to just be omitted by the you know, what we refer to as the mainstream news media, like the, you know, the big networks and ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, all, you know, all those, that they will just choose not to report certain things. And like, you know, I've talked about this in a different context on here, the illegal border crossings that in mass that are largely going unreported, because I see them. I don't see it on a daily basis, but I know that it's happening on a daily basis, because every time I go and teach my shooting classes, I see people illegally crossing the border every single time, which means they're doing it every day. They're not just, you know, coordinating it on the days I teach the classes. But I would think that would be a big news story in a city like San Diego, that is a border city, that is a major port of entry, that is a major what do they call it? I guess port of entry is what they call it. Like a big established. We have two big established border crossing gates, if you will. But then a lot of the border is just unfortunately like wide open and unprotected, and people come across, and like you watch my local news here, and it's right. Not even a blip. You know, Coronado, California, which, you know, most most of our
Oh, yeah.
listeners, I would think, if you do
Yeah.
know the city of Coronado, you probably know it from reference to Navy SEALs, because that's where the Navy SEAL training base is. But it's also some of the most exclusive, unbelievably expensive oceanfront,
Right.
luxury real estate in North America. Like the housing prices there are unbelievable. I mean,
Right.
like John McCain has a house there. Jennifer Love Hewitt has a house there. I used to see her when I would go running. Also out running. That was cool. But
Right.
the Tijuana River, which is right on the U.S. Mexico border. It's on the Mexico side of the border, hence the name. But they pump raw sewage into the ocean every day, every single day, and the ocean currents carry all that raw sewage right straight up to Coronado Beach. And you would think, especially that because the people that live there are millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires, you would think that would get some airtime on the news, and it doesn't.
Right.
There's an app you can look up, and the beaches, the Coronado beaches, have been closed for months. Like we just passed kind of like the peak of the tourist season in the summer, and we would go down to the beach, and the beach would be packed, and there's not one single person in the water because you can't get in the water because it's filled
Right.
with raw Mexican sewage, and that's just not getting reported. So we're living in an interesting, weird, awkward time with what is and isn't reported in the news media. And so, to be honest with you, that when you first shared that story with me, my first inclination was,
Oh, yeah.
at least on some level, this has to be bullshit, because like otherwise, like I can't believe this wouldn't be a major news story.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Now, so again, social media seems to be driving the story, which, to your point, it's shocking that mainstream is not picking this up. And again, I don't know if you turn on your local news in California or in Connecticut, you'd ever hear about it. Or if you're watching national news, I don't know if it's being talked about. The only thing that seems to be getting covered right now is everything bad that Donald Trump did, according to Kamala Harris, and everything bad that Kamala did, according to Donald Trump. That's the only thing that we're going to hear for the next less than 70 days. That's the only thing that they're going to keep talking about, right? That's where the focus has to be on that. Now, if that's by design and they don't want you to, hey, don't look over here where our actions for letting these refugees come in has now blown up. Oh, wow, shocker, right? They don't want you, because then that means that it's more proof that the border has not been secured, right?
Well, I mean, it's obvious that whoever the puppet master is that's pulling the strings, they want to feed us, like he said in My Cousin Vinny, like when a magician's doing a magic trick, he's gonna show you the card, and he's gonna show you that it has straight sides and right angles, and it's perfect, and he'll tell he'll tell you that this is a brick that weighs 10 pounds, and he's going to show you that it's the shape that a brick should be, and it has the sides that a brick should have. But what he's not going to show you is that it's as thin as a playing card, right? So it is an illusion. They only want you to see the perspective that's going to support what they want you to think. And again, like now in news stories, they if you read a news story about a crime that has occurred, if they don't give a physical description of the suspect, you can assume, and probably with a high level of certitude, you can assume what the race of the criminal was, because it was omitted.
Right.
And
right.
so
what I find interesting is that now a local Denver news station or news outlet reported, and this was 11 hours ago was when they reported it. They're saying that both the city and the police have not confirmed what everybody else is talking about right now. And yet
Right.
here we have a social media video that is pretty telling. And, so this video that we're talking about right now, you can see that this is some kind of security cameras in the hallway. And obviously it's a group of people. There's not much more you can determine from that, except they are armed and that they are speaking another language, right? So I can't tell you that they are this gang member or not, but this is what's being shown. And you can see them moving in through these hallways, knocking on people's doors, whether those doors that they're knocking are their people or just people that live there. But you can see that they have firearms and they're on their phone and they're communicating with other people. And that's a scary situation. I mean, I think I know what you would do if somebody knocked on your door and you opened the door to that. I know what I would do. I mean, I think I know what I would do, but this is Aurora, Colorado. I don't know what that city is made up of. I mean, there's some reports out there saying that now they're saying that this apartment complex was on the chopping block to be closed or something like that. But again, that does not look like what we're seeing in that video that we just showed you.
Well, the only part, just to try to be as objective as possible, I've been all over the world. I've been in remote places in the world. I've been in urban centers in the world. And so I will concede from a legal standpoint, that video could be in an apartment building in Panama City, Panama. It could be in an apartment building in Jerusalem. It could be an apartment building in Mexico, or it could be Aurora, Colorado. There is nothing in the video for me to definitively be able to identify that this is that property that is in Aurora, Colorado,
Yes,
having never been there and having not seen it. So there is that from an objective standpoint of quote unquote confirmation. But if you asked me if I stole $100 out of your wallet, my answer can be one of two things. It can be, no, I didn't steal $100 out of your wallet. Or my answer can be, well, I can't confirm how $100 maybe did or didn't get stolen. I can't confirm that. So not confirming is confirmation. So
exactly. Well, you're right. And some of the terminology, when I spoke to Dan yesterday and I told him about it and I was reading him the article, one of the things, and he took a journalism class back in the day in college, and one of the things he pointed out is he says and Paul said the same thing, when it states in the article, sources say, or, like there's a lot of things in the article, the first article that was shared, that could lead a person to believe that it wasn't exactly true, right? Like sources say, not, the chief of police has made a statement and here is his statement saying this is what's happening. Now, since then, there have been full statements from the Denver Police Department and from the city of Aurora. And it's the City of Aurora Police Department. And the person that has made it is Ryan Lubby, who is the deputy director of the city's communication and marketing department. Now, he's a marketer, right? Like he wants you to believe one thing. I'm hoping that it's the truth, but basically, they are stating that the Aurora Police Department has established a task force now.
Now I feel so much better.
I know. With other partners, and they're going to specifically address the concerns about the TDA and other criminal activities affecting migrant communities. I mean, all of that to me is just like, part of me wants to say, well, you invited him in. That's your problem. Now, the other side of me is, I don't think that everybody in that city invited them in, right? You don't have 100. I mean, if they're bleeding hearts and they wanted to help the the refugees or the illegals, we'll just call them what they are, the illegals, and bring us send them here. It's, it's ridiculous. I was told today that I guess either the mayor of this Venezuelan city or whatever is saying, yeah, crime is down. And it's like, well, yeah, you shipped all of your garbage to us. Of course, crime's down. Crime's down in your area. Now these people are setting up shop in a sovereign city. And that's the term that's been used about this situation. They keep saying a sovereign city. So I don't know. I mean, I'd have to do a little bit more research on if Aurora, Colorado is deeming themselves a sovereign city, but I don't,
or a sanctuary city or whatever.
Sanctuary city.
Yeah,
maybe
I don't know that. I haven't heard either. I think I have heard in the past, not as it relates to this, that of Aurora, Colorado being a sanctuary city, which this is what we get for.
Okay, maybe that's the right word. I apologize. I probably used the
well, you could be too, because I remember a couple of years ago there was like a kind of a somewhat of a viral trend where like all these like hippie people were claiming that they were sovereign citizens, and if you there's some obscure subsection of the Constitution that says that you can just claim yourself as a sovereign citizen. You don't have to have an ID, and you don't have to obey the law, and you don't have to obey the speed limit if you're a sovereign citizen or whatever.
Yeah.
So there could be something there. I know that area of the country is a little bit more hippy dippy, I think.
Yeah. Now, the partner that they have joined forces with here is the DEA. Because I believe obviously they're talking about fentanyl and obviously that's the drug trafficking that they're putting out there right now. There's not much that they're providing as far as other incidents that are happening right now. They do that TDA gang seems to operate in Denver as well. And it did say that there was some connection between the TDA and MS-13, which is another, but again, those names, the MS-13, that's been a problem for decades. I mean, you've heard about that gang in cities across the country.
Yep.
And I mean, it's probably always going to be an issue. But that as the incident is what we're focused on today. I guess if you're living in an area that is a sanctuary city, you need to determine what level of acceptance you're going to allow. I mean, and if that's, staying in the city when you could be flooded or overrun by other people, that obviously that's a choice. I mean, it may not be your choice right off the bat, but meaning like, you didn't move to that area with the understanding that it would be a sanctuary city and you'd be allowing immigrants, illegal immigrants to flood and live and take over there, right? That's not a...
Yeah, and like this, like they say in Fight Club, man, like, we have become a generation of men raised by women. And like, this is, I was listening to another podcast yesterday where the female guest on the podcast said something to the effect of, well, it was in reference to the presidential election and everything, but the comment was made that, well, like, men have been in charge for way too long, and it's like, well, yeah, but when the period of time in this country where men had a monopoly on being elected officials and holding public office and stuff, well, those were the years when we won wars, and those were the years where our streets weren't overflowing with homeless people, and those were the years when MS-13 didn't take over apartment complexes in the middle of the city. And like, to me, I always pick up on these like little indicators, like the statement that you read from the police a second ago. It's like, oh, we're forming a task force to address the concerns. Like that means nothing.
Right.
I want the police chief to get on TV and say, we're arming up our SWAT team and we're heading down there. Stand by for the 6 o'clock news, because it's going to be fucking fire. Like, and you take like in 1974 in Los Angeles, that was when the Symbionese Liberation Army, which as far as I can tell was I think it was like 5 or 6 people like holed up in a house. It was not possibly 100 MS-13 gang members that are taking over an apartment complex. That was 5 people in a house, and you know what they did? They went down there and they fucking killed them all. Like that, and now situation solved. You know, they didn't form a task force to address your concerns. They went down there and cleaned it up.
Right. So, and you've got to wonder why, if there's reports of this happening from civilians that live in that area, in that neighborhood, in that complex, whatever the case may be, why they did not do anything sooner. I mean, you know, if they sent a police officer there to investigate the call, did they not notice anything? There's a lot of questions that I would like answered as to why this problem has continued to go on. Now, I don't know the timeline of this, so I don't know how long it's been going on, right? Yeah. I mean, this is maybe a few days that I've been tracking on it. But I don't think they have released any kind of date when this alleged apartment complex takeover has happened. And who knows, maybe the continual push on social media has started to kind of turn those spotlights on the situation, and now they need to do something about it. That being said, if they don't do something like you just said, no, there's no need to talk anymore. You've got armed illegals who, right off the bat, they're and I know we've talked about this, right? Do the illegals have the right to the firearms? But you have armed illegals who are also dealing in drug trafficking and human trafficking, aggressively taking over an apartment building and hurting people. There's really nothing to talk about at that point. It's gear up and go handle the problem. And if you're not going to do it, maybe step aside and let other people do it. But that also comes with bullshit problems, because
so there's a lot to unpack there, because number one, I'm sure this what's the name of the gang? It's not MS-13, it's the TDA.
TDA. It's Tren de Aragua. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it or not, but
like, I'm sure they didn't just like roll down the street. I'm sure they weren't like like the terrorists in Die Hard that like came in with 30 of them in a U-Haul truck and just like rolled the door up and rolled out and did a quick blitzkrieg lightning takeover, you know, like an armed raid. I'm sure like this is something that I've talked about with a lot of people a lot of time, like that I've always called it the backyard mentality. Like, if everybody polices their own backyard, then there won't be a problem. Problems like this is kind of a perfect example, assuming it's legit. This is a perfect example of people that are unwilling to police their own backyard. So, you know, if I police my backyard, my neighbor polices their backyard, and the next house down polices their backyard, then they can't come in anybody's backyard. But like, I can't be the one to police everybody. It's like, but they didn't roll in, like I said, like Hans Gruber. I'm sure they creeped in. It started with 1 or 2 guys, and then became 4, and then became 6, and then became 12, and now it's, you know, however many it is. But I guarantee it wasn't overnight, and I guarantee it was a slow creep that has now, flooded over to where now it's a real problem. Where if either a responsible citizen or a law enforcement agency that was worth a shit, if they had addressed it when it was just a couple of guys and when it was just starting, then this may not even be happening at all. That's number one. Number two, if we get BA and Murdoch and the boys back together and go down there and handle it that way, then they're going to get arrested. They're going to get thrown in jail. They're going to get investigated by the Federal Department of Justice for violating the civil rights of the drug dealers, and
exactly.
And the city, county, federal, state, whatever is going to continue to do nothing except prosecute the people that decide to take the law into their own hands. So
which is so strange to me, right? If some, like you just said, police your backyard. I guarantee you this would have made national news if those people that we saw in the video were coming up the stairs armed, and some guy was leaving his apartment. So he was outside of his apartment, and these guys coming up had their firearms, and this person took action and burned them down. I guarantee you that would make national news. Armed man with an assault rifle, a weapon
armed
of war,
right-wing extremist with assault weapon.
Yeah, with a right-wing extremist mows down three, well, they won't call them illegals, the three sanctuary citizens in attempt to get to their apartment. Like, that's the headline that will make national news. And they'll throw a pick your Second Amendment company. They'll throw that T-shirt on him and say, and look what he was wearing. And I guarantee you that if the person that they tried to get into their house, they opened the door, and then that person was inside their house and took action and defended their property from a group of 5 men armed, they would come after him and say, well, you could have just shut the door, or you could have just not opened the door. It's like, that's the stuff that'll make the headlines, when the rest of this story, which is very freaking disturbing, is not. And I guess you can look up Aurora, Colorado, and see what color the voting map was during the election, but I guarantee you I can guess, and it rhymes with glue.
At the risk of misspeaking, wasn't Magpul? Weren't they in Aurora, Colorado? And then they picked up and left? Yeah.
Well, okay, so no, I don't think they picked up and left, and that was the problem. I think that was
no, they did, because they moved to Wyoming or somewhere, and then because they were trying to make a kind of a political statement, because they were a big money-making company, and they were like, well, we're going to take all of our revenue and leave. And then HexMag moved into the old Magpul factory and said, oh, never mind, we'll pick it up.
You are right. You are right. And they have 2 locations. I believe they do have an office in Colorado still, though, because I have a friend of mine that worked for Magpul, and they live in Colorado. So I think there is a part of it. I don't know, but this person worked for Magpul up until December of last year. So, and they live, like I said, they live in Colorado. So
Magpul was based in Erie, Colorado, and left in protest of a gun control bill signed in 2013 prohibiting the sale of magazines that hold more than 15 rounds in the aftermath of the Aurora theater shooting. So I knew there was an Aurora connection with Magpul there, but yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, that indicates the political leanings of that area. Yeah.
Right. But you're right. HexMag did move in there, and they've since been scooped up by another company. So I don't even believe that HexMag is still in Colorado. That being said, again, you can easily check what the color of the voting looks like 4 years ago or 3.5 years ago, and you can see it again here in less than 70 days. So somewhere along the way, though, the city decided to let those people in. And
well, they
go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean that's correct. The city did let him in. I was just gonna say like it's more of I think I don't know. I would my phrase would like the city's choosing to turn a blind eye to it. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I no didn't, but I mean some of these cities out there did say yes, you can ship them here.
Yeah, probably.
I thought that's what was going on at that point. But you know, one of the other things that I want to bring up about the video is I shared the video with a few people today. The video that we showed earlier, and what got me when I had a conversation with one of those people were the comments that were made. The first thing that was made was, you know, where did they get that automatic rifle? And I was like, well, that's how you can't even tell. I mean, I can like, you cannot tell if it's an automatic rifle or not. There's just, obviously there's no way to look at it. I mean, you can make an assumption based off the style of the rifle, but I don't know about you, but the only thing I noticed about that rifle was the obnoxious long magnified scope that they had on it. Like it almost looked like it was, you know, one of the scopes that the sniper dude had in Saving Private Ryan. Like, you know, the one guy that kept like quoting scripture when he was racking his little bowl. And I mean, it was just one of those long tube. And that was the only thing that I could really tell from that rifle.
This is the first employment of a universal scope since 1965.
Exactly. Like I couldn't even tell if it was an AR platform or not. It was so weird. So right off the bat, I was like, but I guarantee you that the moment that does make it to national news, what are they going to say? Oh, he had a assault rifle. Okay.
Well, so I think if I looked out my peephole and saw that collection of fine, upstanding citizens standing there, and I took them out with my AR, it would definitely be reported that I had a assault weapon of war with a high capacity magazine and blah 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 blah. But if you recall, when you first sent that to me, like I believe my first comment was like, to me, all this is further justification of why I need to own a machine gun. Because if this is a foreign gang from Venezuela, it does stand up to logic and reason that they didn't walk into Bob's gun shop and wait their 10-day waiting period and fill out, you know, the forms and what is it, 1173? Right. Is that what it is?
I don't know.
Whatever.
Unconstitutional. I think you.
Yeah. That's that one. Yeah,
that's what it's called.
But so it does stand to reason that these are illegal guns. We have seen other like the high, what's probability is not the right word. The high like instances, documented instances in places like Chicago and St. Louis, and places where these illegal international criminals that brought with them their illegal guns, they are either fully automatic weapons or they've, you know, that I think it was in Chicago and St. Louis where they like the whole like truckload of the Glock 18 auto switches like got stolen or disappeared or whatever. So I actually would not disagree with the assumption that there's at least a fair chance that that the guy, you know, some MS-13 gang member that's taken over an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado, that they could have a fully automatic weapon. I don't think that's an unfair assumption. But.
So okay, so there were a few points that were made in this conversation, and where I'm going with it is they're all assumptions based on
Yeah.
what they see and what they've been told to believe. So right off the bat, the question that was raised was, how did these young kids get these automatic weapons? Okay, so first, I can't determine the age of any of those people. They're all wearing some kind of hat or hoodie, and it's a stairwell camera. And to your point before, I've got no idea if it's actually in Aurora, Colorado or not. Um, there was only one person with a rifle and a couple others had pistols, but they all had cell phones. And
Yeah,
so then
and when you like, I watched the video a couple of times specifically trying to pick that out. I think there was one other guy that had a rifle, but he was holding it down where you could barely see it.
okay.
Most of them did have actually, which I thought was kind of funny. Most of them had just statistical analysis. The greater majority of the human population of Earth is right-handed. There's more right people in the world than left-handed people in the world. But like all these dudes had the cell phone in their right hand and a handgun in their left hand. And then there was one of the guys, because when the video starts, I think there's only two guys that are like actually at the door. And then throughout the course of the video, it's just more and more and more people are streaming up the stairs.
Right.
And so, yeah, like you said, they all have cell phones. Most of them have guns. So I assume the ones that don't have visible guns have guns that we can't see, because in the video, it's one of the guys that he's wearing like a t-shirt with like an unbuttoned button down shirt over it. And same thing, he has a cell phone in his hand also, but you can see the grip of a handgun sticking out of his pants. So again,
Right.
making the assumption, I do think I think you could safely assume that probably all of them did have guns, because the majority of them did have guns that were visible. And then there was at least one guy that I know that I picked out that had one stuck in his pants. So.
And the second half of that question was, how did they get these guns? And the simple and one word answer is illegally. They got them illegally. They did not do what you did, what I've had to do to acquire my firearms. But yet that alone is not getting them rated. And I mean, they've got all of their, now again, we talk about the form that we have to fill out and the way that we got them. And we shouldn't have to, being free Americans, and the Second Amendment says so.
I think I said 1173 a minute ago. I think it's 4473.
4073. Yeah. Still, either way, the translation is unconstitutional.
Yes.
But so they all have their firearms. Now, the next question was, well, okay, if they opened your door, like, would you be able to do what you needed to do against 5 of them? And I said, well,
yes.
I mean, first of all, they'd have to. I said, first of all, those are the people. That's the kind of group that you take 2 down, and the rest of them, they start running. Like there's not, like, they're not trained. They haven't been through that. Like you just said, they're all holding the gun in the left hand, and those are the ones who they just come up like this. And they just start throwing shots.
They ducking their head and
right. Yeah, exactly. Like
that's the pulling the trigger. So the person in the apartment upstairs would probably be in more danger.
Right.
But
exactly.
I didn't know. Like if we had time, I was going to kind of do a breakdown of that. I have talked about this in other episodes, and it's a huge common mistake that people do. Where even me right now, I live in a nice neighborhood. I'm not expecting anybody to come visit. I'm not expecting a package. Like I'm not expecting anybody to come to my door for any reason right now. But a huge percentage of people, if they get an unexpected knock at the door, they do the little thing where they like open the door just a little bit and they crack and peek through it or whatever. Like that is a huge tactical error. Like, do not open your door. Keep it locked. Speak through the door. If you have a peephole, use that. If you have a like a Ring doorbell camera or whatever, that's
Perfect.
an even
Right.
better option,
Right.
because that doesn't require you to be standing directly behind the door. And then, if for whatever reason, if you are going to open that door a little bit or crack it, stand completely off to the side so that if the person kicks the door, they don't split your face with it. But number one, like, don't open the door. And also we have talked about this before too, because this is where, each person, you need to know and understand your local laws. Does your area have castle doctrine? Does your area have duty to retreat? Does your,
But would that really come into play if a group of 5 men, under your assumption, all armed, were trying to get into your house?
So it does a little bit, like to me personally, and not everybody's like me, unfortunately. But I wouldn't care. I'm a very big believer in it's better to ask forgiveness than permission, and it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Like, I'm that guy. So I would worry about that later. But like in North Carolina, where I'm from, in a situation such as this, especially obviously if the person on the other side of the door is visibly armed, like that's a no-brainer. That's a slam dunk. But also, in North Carolina, if the person on the other side of the door is like making verbal threats, or even if you can't see that they actually have a weapon, if they're banging or kicking the door, in all of those situations in North Carolina, you are legally allowed to shoot them through the door. In California, I don't believe I am, but I would, again, for me, I would worry about that later on. But
But let me just make a point here.
Yep.
These people have been doing this in this apartment building allegedly for how many days now? How many times have the cops been called, and how many times have they failed to do anything? And that's where you go and you go back to that. Yeah. If I have to go to court for this, there's the narrative. Like, how are you going to get through this at that point? Like, you have nothing. The cops have been called 87 times. They've shown up once. They've never shown up again. And this building has been taken by force. You can stick your duty to retreat right up your ass. Like, I'm sorry, like, you weren't here to help me 86 times. Why do I have any belief that you're going to help me on the 87th? So,
so like, we could probably fill an hour-long podcast with specifically how to open your door and how not to open your door, and when to open your door and when not to, and if you're going, when you're in that decision-making process, on and on. But in the situation that's presented in the video, and whoever you said you showed the video to that was like, oh, well, would you even stand a chance if you tried to fight these guys? From what is shown in the video, potentially, if the person that was on the inside of that apartment, if they had the right equipment and the right training, that's the person on the inside of the door is actually at a huge tactical advantage to the people on the outside. And like you said, I also don't agree with your assumption. Again, we've used that word a lot here today. I don't disagree with your assumption that if I schwack the first 3 or 4 that are standing directly in front of the door, probably the rest of them are going to run. And then, even if they don't, they are in a confined area. You have an area to fall back to. You have corners that you can use. You have, like, there's possibly some hard-ish cover that you can use. They don't, because all, like, in that stairwell, it was all the little metal railings with the the thin metal. So it's all wide open. It's all concrete. Like, I can bounce my bullets off the concrete into your feet, legs. Once you fall down, I can bounce one into your face. If you can push out of the, if you can push up to the doorway, you're still in a tactical advantage, because now you're shooting down the stairs. You've got the high ground. So actually, a trained person or trained persons that were inside the apartment that we see in the video would potentially be at a tactical advantage in that situation.
And I want to go,
you actually could take those dudes on. But
and I want to go back to something that you said, obviously, about the door. I think that there are a lot of people that do have the Ring camera, and I'm going to go ahead and we don't have no affiliation to Ring camera at all, but I will go ahead and say that some kind of doorbell camera is one of the most important pieces to security for your house, for your safety, for just documenting. Think about how many different ways it can be used every single day. Missing packages, someone approaching your house to deliver something you need to sign for. They ring the doorbell, you can communicate, and they have verbal confirmation they can leave that package. You can see who comes to your house at what time. If your house is being cased to be robbed, you will catch that. All of those things I think are obviously very important. And for what you just said, if these guys knocked on that door and the person did open the door, but that Ring camera caught 5 people with a firearm, I mean, it's real simple at that point. Yep. Make sure the deadbolt is locked and whatever other security device you have. But then the next part of it is you get that notification from your couch. Your door is locked. You don't make your way to the door. You look, okay, now I know which direction I need to go. And I'm not grabbing a cup of sugar because they're not here for that. I'm going to grab something else.
They are not here to sell Tupperware. That's what
correct.
Say. Yeah. So just like I have the Nest doorbell camera. I've had it for probably 8 or 9 years at this point. I love it. I use it all the time. It's a great additional layer to your home security, home defense plan. We have heard instances lately of when police come to your door and stuff, they'll cover the doorbell camera if you have one, or they'll recently there was I'd have to look this back up to actually be able to cite the source, but there was I believe they were ATF agents that were doing a raid, but they were raiding the wrong house or something, and they
Jesus,
really?
Spray
painted over the people's cameras and stuff. But anyway, still that's still a great additional layer to your security. And then I also my front door itself, I made sure that I have a my front door is actually a solid door. It's not hollow core door. And then I put the Armor Concepts door armor package on both of my exterior doors. And that's the one, I can't personally vouch for how good it is, but you can look online. They have several video demonstrations of they actually invited a sheriff's department SWAT team to try to break the door down, and they couldn't. Wow. So
okay.
So I have the camera. I have a solid front door, not a hollow core front door. And then I put the Armor Concepts door armor on mine as well. So
yeah. I just in this situation, obviously we've talked about what the situation is. We've shown you the video of what's happening allegedly. Again, we cannot confirm or deny that is actually happening. That video is from Aurora. But if that is, then that's a problem. And now you have the local Aurora PD partnering with the DEA to handle the situation. For me, the next thing that you should hear is there's a explosive situation happening in Aurora, Colorado at blah, blah, blah apartment complex where a task force has taken down the TDA gang, 14 confirmed dead.
And 43 arrests and
43 arrests and
112 weapons recovered. Right.
And the apartment complex has been liberated. Unfortunately, we will not be able to make a sequel to New Jack City because it's over. And that's it. It should be done. And if they're not willing to do it, what the hell is going on in today's society? And that was the one thing that the person that I spoke to this morning, they said, they're like, what's happening in our country? And unfortunately, I said, well, that's what happens when you allow illegal immigrants to flow into the country. Your crime rate is going to go up. That's not to say we didn't have a crime rate problem or a gang problem before, but now you just have even more problems entering. And, just obviously another reason why it's important to secure our border, which is clearly not secured. And it's funny that the current Democratic candidate has now said that they're going to hire more border patrols to secure the border, which it's hilarious to me because they haven't said there's a problem
Well, yeah,
in 3.5 years.
And they keep referencing this Border Protection Act bill that was not passed a few months ago, and
right.
The thing that they keep pointing to is like, well, this bill would have hired more Border Patrol agents. And while that is true, if you actually look up the contents of that bill, the hiring of additional Border Patrol agents was arguably the one good thing that was in that bill. It was packaged together with like 99 other bad things that actually would not have helped border security at all. So.
Yeah.
So again, this is that thing where the news media wants to show you certain things, and they want to show it to you from a specific angle that reinforces what they want you to see or think. But so think for yourselves, look things up for yourself. But yeah,
it's it's more important now than ever before to make sure that you get out there and vote in November. What I can tell you, and we're kind of, obviously, as we wrap up the show, I want to focus on something a little bit different here. The situation in Aurora is continuing to unfold and develop, right? So I'm sure at some point, now that you guys have listened to this, you'll check and watch and search it out. And maybe by the next time we have a show, and we'll touch back on what's happened. But getting out and voting in November is so very important. And what I want to reiterate about that is this: make sure you are looking at the policies of the people that you are voting for. And you vote based on the policy. I can tell you that I'm the reason why I don't turn on the news anymore is because I'm tired of hearing Donald Trump come up with a nickname for whoever is he's running against. I'm just tired of it. We're not in high school. Fucking leave it alone. If you're gonna vote, don't be a single issue voter. I mean, if you like one policy, but the rest of that policy sucks, don't be stupid. I'm sorry, just don't be stupid. But I'm tired of hearing Donald Trump, like I said, come up with another nickname for Kamala. I don't want to hear about it anymore. I'm tired of hearing Kamala just, sit there and say stupid shit. She's just trash.
Well, what channel are you watching where you're even hearing anything from her?
Well, so that's true. You're right. She's not saying anything because they just don't want her to say anything. I don't know much about JD Vance. I knew nothing about JD Vance prior to him being selected as a VP candidate, but he did have an interview with CNN, and I think he handled it perfectly. So I'm very, very excited to see what he brings to the table. But that's my 2 cents on voting here. It's very important. Try and look past all the shit that the media is saying and do your own research. Listen, that might be the most impossible task out there, because where are you going to do it? Where are you going to find that? Talk to other people, talk to like-minded people, exchange ideas, go back and forth, debate, and don't talk to a Democrat and start the conversation with "you libtard," right? That's never going to get you anywhere. Like, have a conversation with them and ask them what they're voting for. What are you voting on? What policy do they have out there that is going to literally make you say, yes, this is it? And if they come back to you and say, well, no, Trump sucks, Trump's a racist, okay, then, you're going to have a very hard time getting through to that person. But there might be some people that are on the fence, And it's important to try and have a good conversation with them, because we can't let shit like that's happened in Aurora continue to continue to happen. Does that mean, like, we have to close the borders? We have to fix our own backyard, kind of what you were saying before. And that's the backyard that we're all living in. So,
yeah,
folks, it brings us to the end of the show. And I know this was kind of one of those breaking news topics that we like to do once in a while. We've got some other shows coming up that I'm excited to get done here. Some with Jamie, some with Paul, some with both of them. Maybe some guest appearances in the coming weeks. But, I always like to end it with, I want you guys to stay safe out there. And I thank you for listening to the show. And even more so when you start hearing stuff like this, there are these elements of situations across the country, whether you live in Sleepytown, USA, or, a big sanctuary city. Just keep your head on a swivel. Don't be somebody's resupply, and just stay safe out there. Until next time, Jamie.
Yeah, this is a real world example that these kind of things are happening in our country. Politicians like to tell you, like, oh, you don't need an assault rifle for deer hunting. Well, number one, the Second Amendment has absolutely nothing to do with hunting or sport shooting. And I guess, to be fair, the Second Amendment also has really nothing to do with personal defense, like against crime. It's defense against tyranny. But this is a real world example when somebody says, well, why do you need a quote unquote assault rifle? Why do you need an AR with a 30-round magazine? And it's because in the United States of America, there are cartel members showing up at people's front doors, and the police aren't doing anything about it. So there's your real world example. And when Chris a second ago said, well, we can't confirm. Yes, from a legal, journalistic, libel and slander standpoint, I suppose we can't confirm that video is from Aurora, Colorado, but the fact that the police, or that the city officials, the fact that their response was, well, we can't confirm, lack of confirmation is confirmation, in a situation like this. And so this just drives home the point that this is a real world example of why you need to be armed, why you need to be prepared. One of the takeaways from that video was the demeanor of the armed individuals in that video. They were 100% not expecting any resistance at all from the person on the other side of that door that they were knocking on. They were lax, lazy, had their weapons down, talking on their phones, all that stuff. So with a little surprise, speed, and violence of action, you absolutely could get the upper hand on a group like that shows up at your door. And then, I can't agree more with what I like to call the backyard theory. You police your own backyard. If everybody polices their own backyard, then together we can police our street, our block, and you push your perimeter out and out. But this kind of stuff, it is a slippery slope. It didn't happen overnight. They didn't that gang didn't roll in hard and take over between midnight last night and sunrise this morning.
Right.
They slowly crept in because they were allowed to. So just don't allow them to. But anyway, that's it. That's all I got. It's easy to be hard. It's hard to be smart.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you again. Until next time, ZP002 out.